Greetings! Welcome to the Week 16 Early Access Update for Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. We're going to start off, as always, with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? We have an updated arena environment, now with more cover made of red painted wood, and a new bot to fight, namely Clunk Mark II. Now, before I jump in and start hunting some Clunk here, I want to just let you know that this is a significant upgrade over the Mark I Clunk, who was a bit stupid. He would basically just see you and slowly move towards you and firing. Clunk Mark II is agile. He is difficult to hit. His hit zones are smaller, and so I'm going to try to not make a fool of myself trying to fight him. Also, just so you know, the gaze teleport has been tweaked. You can see confirmation on a new node happens much faster. And in addition to that, a number of sort of node points throughout the environment have been moved closer to the edges, so it's easier for you to, say, fire down at lower positions. So let's go robot hunting and see how we do. Oh shoot, one might have seen us. He's over there. So we're going to go over here. Oh, goodness. Retreat! Actually managed to hit one. Getting surrounded. Disengage. Most of them can't see me. Someone's coming. Going full auto. All right. Oh, goodness. Going buckshot. Whew. Well, as you can see from this demonstration, Anton is not capable of firing well with a rifle. Let's go over here, let's take out another. I am just not getting the straight place. Let's get closer. Plate. Oh, goodness. And I've been reset. So yeah, as you can see, Clunk is quite vicious. A bunch of them are still firing along. We're going to do something a little different this week with the devlog. We're going to actually jump out into the Unity editor and take a closer look at what Clunk Mark II is built of.
So we're over in the Unity editor now, we've always been in the Unity editor, just usually in play mode. But we're going to take a look at what Clunk Mark II is at the moment, what I have planned for him, and a number of the systems that are going to find their way into future agents like him. To start off with, just to give you an idea where I'm coming from in terms of designing him, I've been personally displeased with most of the shooters that are available, both inside and outside of VR, in that they tend to be focused largely on large, sort of spammy waves of very simple enemies. And especially given the sort of wide tool set that H3 allows you to arm yourself with, my goal with Clunk and his future brethren is to create an agent that has a more complex behavior than we typically see in shooters. And really is eventually designed around having to take a much more tactical approach to dealing with him. So to start with, what is Clunk made of? Well, Clunk is made of several articulated components. There's the base, which is the sort of tracked area here, which we can see two steel targets on, one on the front and one on the rear. And I'll explain the logic behind how the steel targets work in a moment. And then we have a torso up here, which is where the various sorts of weapon mounts are. He's got a primary one, which will be, at the moment, has the sort of modular 40mm cannon, which will eventually be able to be a grenade launcher, as well as sort of several other types of specialist weapons. Right now it's just a short-range, slow-firing cannon. It's basically firing a ping-pong ball at you right now, because the projectile's only moving at about, I believe, 18 meters a second. And then he's got two currently empty side mounts that are capable of swiveling out if he happens to get closer to you. And this is where his secondary and shorter range munitions will eventually be mounted. I have plans for 2 to 3 sort of categories of armament style for him. One is going to be the sort of, we'll call it the practice armament style, where he has sort of is firing ping pong balls out of the main cannon and probably firing something akin to a Nerf dart out of the sides, i.e. they're projectiles that move slow enough that you can physically dodge them. And then there'll be more realistic assortments of weapons that will go on him, which will have projectiles firing at full velocity, which will make engaging him significantly more lethal, as you might imagine. So for the practice mode that we currently have him in, his damage is taken purely via these steel targets. And there's 2 sets of them, 2 on the tracked base and 3 on the top. And the way these basically work is, if you hit one of them within a given set, so let's take the tracked section, for example, it will, for 5 seconds, really muck up his navigation, and then the plate will reset. If you manage to get both of the plates down on the tracked section, it will permanently disable his navigation. For the top section, for the turret here, similarly, if you hit one plate, it will screw up his ability to aim at you, once again, for about 5 seconds, till the plate resets. And if you manage to get 2 of them down, either the 2 on the front or 1 on the front and 1 on the rear, it will basically blow him up, as you saw in the video of me actually fighting him. Now, beyond the strike plates that are on him, he has a couple other components which at the moment aren't damageable yet, but they're wired up to eventually be so. The main one here is the way that Clunk sees the world. Most game agents that you encounter in games have some form of a perfect representation of the environment around them. They either always know exactly where the player is or where their enemies are, and then they sort of decimate down from there to make the AI miss some of the time, etc. Clunk doesn't see that way. Clunk actually has a network of sensors going around his body. You can see a number of them on the torso here, as well as some ones on the front and the back. And those sensors actually reach out via physics ray casts and some sphere checking, looking for thermal contacts, of which you are one. When it finds a thermal contact that doesn't match its IFF, this is so that the bots don't, shoot at each other, it gets registered in Clunk's memory, and Clunk remembers the last place it saw something and makes decisions based on that. Now, why do this? The important thing is that this is an imperfect way of seeing the world, which means it has the possibility for a lot of nuance in it. To help demonstrate this, I'm going to grab a testing thermal contact that I have here, and I'm going to start the game up. I'm going to actually make sure my sound is down so it doesn't disturb me. and you'll be able to see him in action against this. Make sure, cool, we're on thermal contact. Let's hit play. And so here you can see a whole bunch of different debug lines that I have being drawn. I'll actually switch over to also showing the nav mesh. This blue area is the sort of representation of the level that he can navigate. And the red lines you're seeing coming from him to the target are actually the last known point that he saw the target at. So if I quickly move this, say, down here, Clunk didn't actually see the target go down there. He simply saw it go out of sight there and reacts based on that. So yeah, so let's go ahead and give that a pause. And so thus far, Clunk has a number of behaviors that he can cycle through situationally. He can try to chase you down if you go out of sight. He will attempt to keep a certain engagement range from you. If you get too close to him, the next time he picks a destination, he'll try to get further away from you. I actually still need to make that a little more responsive, as it's still a little too easy to get up real close to him suddenly and just like take his plates out with a shotgun. That'll be changing over time. Most importantly though, all of the systems that I've put together for building Clunk are modular, which means that there are a number of different other types of agents, such as flying agents, turrets, and some more unusual sorts of robots that will be able to sort of reuse about 90% of the work or so that I've put into making Clunk. They'll just need their own sort of root logic, but we'll use the same base pieces. Another thing I wanted to point out in terms of things that are coming soon is you'll notice these sort of pads that are here and here. These are launcher arrays. They'll be the tertiary weapon for Clunk, and those will be all sorts of nifty surprises between sort of little smoke charges that he can fire off. So if he takes fire from you at long range and can't detect you within about a second or so via his sensor systems, he'll try to obfuscate his position and move to a better position. In addition to that, there'll probably be some sort of short-range defensive charges to defeat the current probably best strategy of trying to get up super close with a shotgun. He'll have some buckshot he'll be able to fire right back at you. And then finally, in terms of what's going to eventually be coming with him, is a more nuanced damage system. Obviously, fighting with sort of steel plate-based targets isn't the most realistic thing, and while it can be fun from a certain sort of arcadey perspective, it isn't necessarily going to be the only way that you can fight him. There'll be a mode for him where the steel plates are gone, and instead he will respond to damage much more realistically, meaning that he's actually built of steel armor. You'll have to use penetrating or explosive munitions to be able to take him down, or take down his weak points, such as his sensor systems. So yeah. So switching over to camera here. Apologies for how haggard I look. It's been a stressful week. It's taken a lot more effort getting a properly done agent up and running than I expected. Clunk Mark 1, which is still in the breaching scene for now, is brick stupid if you fought him. He detects you, he moves towards you slowly. That's about all he can do. Building a navigation system that was robust enough to be able to handle a really arbitrary level layout was trying, especially because it was really stretching my my understanding of vector math, which is, questionable at times. In terms of sort of roadmap-y stuff, in terms of what's sort of coming up next, this coming week is going to be largely a bug fixing pass. I've assembled a list of like 30 or 40 things, possibly more. Thanks to those of you in the community who've actually given me a couple really nicely described collated lists. I have sorted them into the various weapon types and systems, and I'm going to be attacking them. One of the other things, I know I'm still, especially fighting Clunk Mark II here, I'm not happy with the way that navigation is working from a fluidity standpoint. A number of you have commented on the fact that the touchpad teleport is still way too slow to pull out suddenly, and you have to click to disengage it. I'm going to be solving the problem in two different ways. One of them is I'm going to give you some more options and default a couple things to slightly different functionality than current. I'm going to make it so that the touchpad teleport auto closes and give you an option if you don't want that. And in addition to that, I'm going to make it so that the menu button that is currently being used for the gaze teleport will be able to map to whatever your preferred locomotion method is, meaning you can press that button down and get an immediate directed touchpad teleport, or keep using the gaze teleport. And someone actually brought up an idea that I think I want to explore, which is doing a gesture-based dash, meaning that you would hold the button down and sort of whip your hand in a given direction, and it would move you in that direction a limited amount, probably in the area of like 1 to 1.5 meters, or until you basically hit the environment. I really like that idea, and I think, especially considering, once again, that I really want to make locomotion plus two-handed weapons work well. The ability to not even disengage the hand from the weapon, but just hold that button and whip slightly like that. I really want to see if that could work, just to get some more directionality in. So yeah. And then beyond that, just getting beyond the bug fixing, I'm going to be working a lot on Clunk and a lot on some optimization, as the process of adding all of these sort of obstacles in the arena environment. You might have noticed that like the metal rims on them don't look like metal. There's a reason for that. I discovered, after I had already set up this environment, I went to performance test it, and on my Titan X, I was getting late starts on like a third of frames and panicked. Apparently the sort of in-engine call for looking up a reflection probe to give metal objects some nice shininess there adds up quick, more so than I've ever seen it. It was contributing to something like 4.5 milliseconds of frame draw time. So I panicked, and you'll notice that's why the red blockers in the arena level don't even have standees. I simplified them as rapidly as possible, just as a quick fix, so you guys could actually play in the scene this week. I think I'm gonna have to go back and rethink the way I've built some of my environment props and standees to just make them as mercilessly cheap as possible. No reflections, totally diffuse materials. They'll still look realist, they'll just look very diffuse, as I can spend that CPU frame time better in a whole bunch of other places. So yeah, well, I think I've rambled enough on this. Please give fighting Clunk Mark II in the arena scene a try. Try it with a whole bunch of weapon combinations, and hit me back on Reddit, and hit me back on the Steam community. I'd really like to know how it feels to fight him in his current form with the various sorts of weapon sets. So try it with if you enjoy this sort of thing, try it with pistols, try it with shotguns, try it with SMGs. If you want to record some video of you fighting him and post it to the H3VR subreddit, I would love to see it, especially just because it would be useful for me to see the way other people are playing in those sorts of engagements in a non-performative way. Because most of the video I have is sort of YouTube streamers, and they're playing to an audience in an important way. They're not really playing it the way someone who is playing a game when no one's watching is. So that'd be really useful to me if some of you folk would be willing to do that. So yeah, and I'm going to keep tuning him. I think he's a little too difficult right now. He might move a little bit too fast, but we will see. And yeah, so I will keep on plugging away on this and trying not to tear up my hair, and I will see y'all next week. Peace.